everybody should have just gotten a notification that a recording is in progress. That's so that anybody who wasn't able to attend this meeting can watch the recording later. It'll be on our YouTube channel. And I'm going to share my screen just a moment. All right, thank you everybody for coming to our virtual board night. We're happy to have you here. Let's just get right into it. So if you've been to our virtual board nights before, you've seen these. These are our community agreements. Be present, be compassionate, be generous, and be brave. There will be time to ask questions, and we look forward to answering your questions. We ask that you keep your mic muted when you're not speaking so that everybody can be heard. And we're going to be sharing our time and our energy with each other tonight. And yeah, we look forward to working with you together over this next hour. And then you can also see the agenda here. But with that, I'm just going to pass it right over to you. Leni, take it away.
Thanks, Audrey. Thanks, everyone who's here tonight, the 49 of you, and also others who might tune into this recording after today. I am going to go a little bit out of order for our agenda and push up if you haven't heard already, we had a shooting in the ward by Senn yesterday. And I wanted to, again, shout out and give my condolences and my heart to the shooting victims and also their families, the students at Senn, and the community at large. I'm a mother too. I have 3 kids. One of them is still a teenager, and the one who was fatally shot was only a couple years younger than my youngest son. And we should not have this where kids are unsafe walking to and from school. So if you don't know anything about it, Senn High School is our neighborhood high school in Edgewater. And it is a very walkable ward. So we have a lot of kids walking to and from school on Thorndale and Glenwood. Today we were walking the area too, just to check in with neighbors. CAPS is also canvassing the area to check in with neighbors. We are in touch with the principal at Senn, and also the mayor's office and Chicago Police Department, along with the Chicago Public Schools, to make sure that the kids have what they need right now to mourn and grieve and to process what has happened. We never want to see any loss of life anywhere, but when it has to do with our young people and at the hands of another young person and with guns, we have to look at what we're doing and call for something better. So please stay tuned and stay updated. In the meantime, we are going to be at the vigil tonight at Trinity at 1244 West Thorndale. And I hope to see you there. And if I don't, please at any time reach out to the office, give us a call. And we're also happy to come into the community. We will be having more community events, and please look to the newsletters and our social medias to see when that date will come up. We're going to be hosting with our district counselors in the 20th and the 24th district, along with community partners. So please stay in touch about that. we're going to have time also to ask questions at the end of this, of course, as we do with every ward night. So moving on, for now, we're going to go through some city council updates. This week, we were very glad in the 48th Ward to pass the Uniting for Peace ceasefire resolution. Over the past several months, we've had many people stop by, call, email us, visit us at City Hall to let us know that they wanted us to represent them and to stand firm in our belief that we have to value all human life. And so this is what the Uniting for Peace ceasefire resolution calls for. Resolution calls for immediate humanitarian ceasefire and aid and supplies to be sent to the region. And I'm a physical therapist. I'm a mother. I have, vivid memories of being hospitalized for my C-sections for my 2 kids. And the fact is right now in Gaza, there are no hospitals, working hospitals. And so as we are losing life and also bringing new life in, we have tens of thousands of pregnant women who are, that's who I'm thinking of, who are there and bringing in new life into this world with emergency C-sections without sanitary conditions and without anesthesia. We have to do what we can here in Chicago, and we are leading on our values to acknowledge the pain that our neighbors are going through because of conflict there. And so I was one of those that voted for the ceasefire resolution. I think everyone who called to give me their opinions about that vote. The next one is the police misconduct arbitration. So this is a committee that I support, but I am not a part of the workforce development committee. The police misconduct arbitration calls for us to have more transparency in the arbitration process. And this is for like the worst cases. And arbitration would allow CPD officers accused of the most serious wrongdoing to bypass the police board in favor of proceeding with a more sympathetic arbitrator behind closed doors. And the vote supports police accountability and transparency. So we expect this to come up for a vote in the next full city council meeting. The Clean and Affordable Building Ordinance is an ordinance that is long overdue to support our mission for clean air and clean buildings, especially for new buildings. So we want to phase out gas and fossil fuel-based appliances out of new developments in Chicago. And we want to relieve the utility burden from gas, and we want to make the environment safer and healthier for all of us. So we are going to have an event on February 8th at 6 o'clock at 6018 North Kenmore. And I hope you can make it. It's sponsored by Sierra Club, One North Side, and the Edgewater Environmental Coalition and our group, and Cub. So please make it if you can. We would love to see you there. And with that, we are going to open up for questions. Again, I thank you for being here. There are 56 people on the call. And so we want to leave time for your questions and answers, and then also time for us to get to the vigil, which is going to start at 7 o'clock today on Thorndale and Magnolia. And I'll call on Audrey to moderate the Q&A.
Okay, so for the Q&A, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see everybody's raised hands. Okay, so the way the Q&A is going to work is that we'll do raised hands, the Zoom raise hand feature, and then I'll call on people to speak out loud. But then if you don't feel comfortable speaking out loud, you can also put questions in the chat and I will alternate between the two. So I'll call on a hand and then I'll read one from the chat and go back and forth that way. And then we also have the Q&A feature in Zoom where you can type in a question. And that's for if you have a question that we don't have time for, that we don't get to, that you don't want to ask during the actual time of the meeting. That way we'll have record of everybody's questions, even if we can't answer all of them. So with that, if you have a question, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand and we can get started. All right, Chris, I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
So we're told in the paper that this happened at 1200 West Thorndale. During our Black Club meeting, we actually had some police officers that were present because the border between 24th District and the 20th District has been at Thorndale for years. When you get east of Broadway, we certainly requested, given the fact that the Broadway Armory doesn't have any after-school programs for these children anymore, and that it is being used because of the L construction, the traffic there during peak time hours. We were asking for beat officers to actually be present at Thorndale. This was much closer to Broadway, is my understanding, than it was to Senn. Were there beat officers present? Where are the members of that public safety and accountability thing? Are they working towards moving the boundary of this police district? Because that has never been a good boundary. And what are they up to? Are there any restorative justice programs? What are we going to do for these kids after school programs and make it so that we don't have, I mean, that's a stop for the Swift kids, for the Senn kids. It's just a congested place, especially around 4 o'clock. And if there were no beat officers, that's a tragic failure of the Chicago Police Department.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for that question. So the idea is that we want to work with both the 20th and the 24th police districts. So Thorndale is the cut through. So north of Thorndale is the 24th police district and south of Thorndale is the 20th district. And that has been a spot that has been deemed, a place where both the 20th and the 24th have eyes on that area. They have been for a long time, and it is because it is the proximity to the L stop, similar to Bryn Mawr, very close to L, and also Argyle. And so they've always had more presence. So what happens after something like a tragedy like this is that the CPD works to have more of a presence around the school, around the area, and also around the corridors for at least 2 weeks. But I did meet with both of the commanders today, the captain of the 24th and the commander of the 20th, to let them know that this area has had police patrols there in history, in its history. Because again, we have a lot of young people using that area, going to and from the L. And so we want everybody to be safe. And so it has had a foot patrol there in the past. I did talk to them today, a couple hours ago, about the idea of having more officers on Thorndale, on Broadway, and on Glenview and Glenwood. And the answer that I got was they are going to try, because what we have asked for before this, since we have been in office, is to have more presence in our business corridors because of the rash of robberies that we've seen on Broadway, on Clark Street, and on Argyle. So we're going to continue to work with them to see how they can manage, especially since it's a shared edge of both the 20th and the 24th district, figure out what their schedules could be. So or at the very minimum, have more foot patrols, especially around school dismissal time, between the hours of 3 and 4 o'clock. And then in addition to that, we are going to work with the CTA, because there needs to be everybody's got to do their part, right? And that goes for, the teachers and the students working together with the parents and the LSC, getting the kids what they need, the community coming together. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to and since this happened, who are just heartbroken for the victims and their families and the school at large. It's just something that just doesn't happen in this area.
And the district representatives, where are they? And is this connected to the shootings that actually occurred in the Loop?
Okay, thank you for that question. So the question is, where are the senators and the other district representatives?
No. The Community Policing Board representatives that we placed in May.
Yeah. The district counselors. So what Chris is asking about are the district counselors that everybody who voted for 3 of them in their police district. So for instance, today I was out canvassing the area with police district counselor Deirdre, and also Jarrell Dakers was also at Senn in his capacity as a community CP for P, the anti-violence group that we need to work with also to prevent retaliation and to know what's happening on the ground. So yes, they are present, they are there, we're working together, and we're going to continue to work together along with the 24th Police District counselors. It's got to be all of us working together. And the other question that you had was?
Is it connected to the students that were killed in the Loop?
No, as far as I know, these 2 incidences are isolated and they do not relate to each other.
Okay, moving on to the chat. Apologies. So I'm noting the comments that people are putting in the chat, and I want you to be assured that we're saving the chat and we'll have record of your comments and we will read them. But unless you have a question, I will skip over it. So the next question from the chat is, saw in the newsletter that the Alderwoman is advocating for a return of programming to the Armory. Can she talk a little about what kind of process she would support to deconvert it from a shelter, and comment on if she will commit to not supporting any deconversion plan that will involuntarily relocate the families in the Armory to another neighborhood?
Thanks. So thanks for the question. So for a little context, the Broadway Armory not too long ago was an empty building, and the community organized to rally around the use of the Broadway Armory as a field house, because we don't have something like that in the Edgewater area. And they organized and they got funding, they got support from the city, and through all those efforts, they were able to build up programming in the Armory and also have other groups working out of that, including a trapeze school, including theater, including all sorts of other programs that use that Broadway Armory gymnasium, including the weight room, senior center through Catholic Charities. And so since the beginning, we have been asking, what is the plan for the use of the Armory, and how does it fit in with the strategy across the city? And in August, we had too many people living on the floors of police stations, and our priority was to make sure that people had a dignified place to sleep. And so we decompressed the police stations. The Broadway Armory has been used as a temporary shelter since then. It has around 350 people sheltering in their families. children. And now we are moving forward with state-run shelters. There's a landing zone that's state-run, and also a new state-run shelter in Little Village. But the city has no plans to open up more shelters. What they do support right now is the faith-led initiative, where we're asking for churches and other faith-led groups to open their doors, such as New Life Center here in the Edgewater area, that has opened their doors to a family. So we encourage that kind of shelter right now, versus a large congregate shelter where everybody is in one room. Now, I have visited the shelter over the last months, and I'm glad to know that the management of the shelter is going well. The families are getting what they need. I'm really grateful for the organizations in this area, including Centro Romero and Chicago Chinese Mutual Aid Association and others who have done programming inside the Armory so that we can help orient our new neighbors. And I'm also really grateful for the volunteers and the mutual aid groups who've been working really closely with, for instance, Care for Real, so that we can coordinate for food and for clothing for the families. The city is going to move forward with a 60-day limit inside shelters, but they have extended it to allow for instance, to accommodate for the cold. We are not going to evict people out into the cold from any of our shelters. And also, the idea is to make sure that everybody is doing what they need to do to connect either the families with families that they know or friends that they know, so that they can resettle outside of the shelters, or they could get the help that they need to get connected to housing and with work authorization, so that they can move on to a better life. So in the meantime, we are saying the 48th Ward is we really need the programming. We need the programming. Our families need the programming. Our young people need the programming. Seniors need the programming that are coming out of the Broadway Armory. And we've not had that since the Broadway Armory has been used as a temporary shelter for the new arrivals. There is a little bit of the Armory left where we can have programming, but in the meantime, we are advocating for a plan moving forward, because like the police stations, which is a public space, parks are also a public space, and we would like to return it to a public space. And at the same time, we want to make sure that every new arrival has a path forward towards a new life in Chicago or wherever they choose to resettle in the US, because that's who we are. We're going to take care of new arrivals and immigrants. I'm the daughter of immigrants, and this ward has been and always will be a welcoming area for everybody, no matter where you come from. So that's what we're going to continue to do.
I'm sorry to speak out of turn, but that didn't answer any of my questions.
Tell me what your question is, Joel.
What kind of deconversion process would you support? And will you commit to making sure that will you commit to only supporting plans that give families the option to stay in Edgewater if they want?
Yeah, I would love to be able to say that every family who wants to stay in Edgewater can stay in Edgewater. The way it's happening now, which is not my preference, is that families are actually getting relocated out of the Broadway Armory through the help of Catholic Charities and others. The issue is that they're getting relocated to places where it's more affordable or whatever process Catholic Charities has. And what is happening is that the families that, for instance, signed up to go to Swift School, which is just steps away from the Broadway Armory, they fell in love with their teachers, they fell in love with their communities, and they fell in love with their classmates, and they don't want to change. So even though they are getting relocated to a more permanent housing situation, the families are taking 2 buses back to Edgewater. It would be my choice for them to stay. I have visited the shelters in other wards, such as in Little Village, and Little Village has 2 shelters there, and it's their preference too for the families who started out in Little Village to stay in Little Village. I would love for that to happen over here in Edgewater. So there's got to be more conversation about how it's happening, and we are in touch with the city and DFSS, and also, you know, we need to continue to talk to, again, the faith-led organizations. If you know of any that might want to open up their doors so that they can stay in Edgewater while they're looking for more permanent housing, that would be fantastic. And also, if anyone here is a landlord in the Edgewater area in the 48th Ward, please let us know, because we would love to connect with you.
All right. And actually, yeah, in response to that, we had a whole kind of like campaign we were pushing a few months ago, trying to encourage local landlords to get in touch with 2 organizations that are working to provide rental assistance to landlords who are like wanting to help keep new arrivals who are in the Armory and leaving in the neighborhood. So I will share the resources in case anybody on this call is a landlord or knows any landlords and wants to help us share our materials to help make that happen. I will send those resources in the chat in just a moment. Okay, so next one is going to be somebody with their hand raised. So Jean, that's you. Go ahead and ask your question. Jean Campbell, are you there? Okay, I see you're unmuted.
Hi. Like you can hear me. Okay. I think my question is concerning this. I know it is concerning the shooting recently of the teenagers. I was just wondering, do we know anything about those particular students? Were they chosen? Are they part of a gang? Was it a random? If it's a random shooting, it's really frightening. Not that it's not a tragedy, but do we know anything about those particular students, why they were shot and killed?
Thanks, Jean. The investigation is ongoing with the Area 3 detectives, but we know that one of the students, it was their first day of school. They had just transferred over. 15 and 16-year-olds. We don't know anything about the shooters yet. I do know that the one of the 2 that were hospitalized, and one was discharged today. So that's good news. But we don't know much else about these students. What I do know is that it's a crisis that's happening not only in Chicago but all over the nation, where too many young people are getting their hands on guns, and a loss of life means little to them. So we've got to do something different than what we have been doing in the past. You know, as we're walking around, and I know Ivy's on the call too, and we're just shaking our heads like, what do we need to do as a community to prepare ourselves for the next one? You know, God forbid that there is going to be something like this again. And to be clear, shootings in the Edgewater area among young people, as young as 15 and 16-year-olds, it's not an everyday occurrence in this area. So we are working across, not just with the commanders in the 20th and 24th districts, but also with the mayor's office, because we have to tackle the root causes of violence. And it points towards disinvestments in parts of the city, and also we know that we have to do better with what we have right now. We're working closely with Senn and the principal there to make sure that the students who have been, you know, directly impacted, and also their classmates, are getting the social services that they need to help with the trauma, and also waiting to hear about the infrastructure that the mayor's office is going to create that will also help the community. So please keep in touch and make sure that you hold the victims in your hearts, and also make sure that you keep in touch with us about the next community event that we're going to have, that's going to center around this incident, which is a tragedy. It should not happen anywhere in the Chicago area, but we do want to have a community event centered around what we're doing, especially as it relates to gun violence and young people. And we'll have the district counselors, as Chris was mentioning, and we'll have the business owners there. Actually, every single person in our community has a stake in making sure that our community is safe. So I hope that you will all be participants in that next meeting. And again, I just want to remind you, if you just got here, that today at 7 o'clock, there is going to be a vigil at Magnolia and Thorndale at 7 o'clock. And we want to use this time to come together and to make sure that we are checking in on each other, checking in on our neighbors, and making sure that we're all okay.
Leni, I have a quick question about the 16-year-old. Were they, I guess, from families that were members of the community, or were they, for instance, coming from the shelters? Do we know anything about them?
Yeah, thanks, Tricia. So we know for certain, that there were no new arrivals associated with this shooting. So these are members of our community. So we're grateful for that.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the chat. Okay, here's a question from the chat. Can you provide any update for the armed robberies in January in Edgewater, and the second retail robbery with Deflowered?
So this was a string of robberies that happened on Broadway, the Edge of Sweetness, and Patio Beef and Wingstop, in the corner store there. And we do have, again, ongoing investigation, but they do have leads. They're tracking down the criminals who caused this. It's not related to what's happening on Clark Street, which is another incident where there was a break-in at not just Deflowered, but also the corner store and several other places like Big Jones and across the way, the bakery across the way. And yes, we are working with the 20th and the 24th Police District to work with the Chambers of Commerce and with the business owners, but investigations are ongoing. It is it's very upsetting. You know, I'm also a small business owner, so I know that even though they broke in and they only got, a couple $100 out of the register, or maybe nothing out of the register because there was no cash in the register, it still costs money to replace a door or a window, you know, and to clean up mess. And so some business owners are like, well, this is the cost of doing business, and others are like, this is, you know, this is gonna tank me. I will not be able to reopen again. So all of this to say that it's something that I would never want to happen to any of our small businesses, but is really small businesses are working on very thin margins, you know. So if you like your small businesses in your neighborhood, please, you know, check in on them, support them, and help them by patronizing their businesses. And in the meantime, please keep asking us so that we can keep asking the detectives what's the next steps, what are we doing? Because that's why we're here, to look up things and to make sure that things are moving along. And if sometimes when we don't ask, we don't get that information. So thank you for the question.
Okay, I'm going to answer a question from a raised hand. Unfortunately, I do not remember which of the two of you, Nicole and Karen, raised your hand first. I believe I saw Karen's hand first, so I'm going to go ahead and call on Karen.
Okay, you can hear me? Yes? Okay, so on Thorndale near the L and as you're walking west, there's those cameras that are kind of keeping track of everybody and everything happening on the street. I don't know if it's a continuous loop. I don't know no one monitors it, but they can go back. Around the high school, are there such high cameras that are kind of recording what's happening? Is there one on Broadway closer to where the shooting happened? Are we capturing who these people are?
Thanks for the question. So the cameras that you're talking about are they're called pod cameras, and we do have inventory of them across the board, and we're working with the commanders to make sure that they're in Operation. And I know that several of them have not been in operation, so we're checking on the video cameras for sure, because that could help. We're also talking with the CAPS because they are also canvassing folks, and also the residences, because Thorndale is a residential street, to see if they have any camera footage that they might be able to share. Because unfortunately this shooting happened on a residential street. You're right, it didn't happen at Senn. It happened closer to Broadway, right? And closer to Magnolia. Yeah, you're muted. You're muted, Karen. What did you say?
I was asking if there are cameras around Senn and if they could be ordered immediately. These high schools are in trouble and there's no cops anymore in the schools, apparently. So somebody's got to be watching at least its cameras and catch some of these guys so they think twice before they do this stuff.
Yeah, so the idea around the surveillance around the schools, you know, if you did pass Senn today, you would have seen that there were a lot of cars, officers walking, officers in cars, and not only that, there were security guards from CPS. There were also many representatives from Communities Partnering for Peace. So it was very heavily surveilled today. Moving forward in terms of the cameras, you know, we could talk about that more with Chicago Public Schools and the principal to see what kind of cameras they might want on their campus. But generally, our plan now is to continue talking with the police commanders to make sure that we don't stop with the foot patrols, because especially again around our business corridors, Broadway and Clark Street and Bryn Mawr. But not only that, we're in high traffic areas, especially where we have our young people on Thorndale going to the L. We would like to see more foot patrolmen, foot patrols where people and students and families and neighbors can get to know these beat cops, to get to know and predict that we're going to have a presence on the street, especially during dismissal time after school hours. So that's the plan at the moment, but we will continue talking with our the Director of Public Safety on Hill, Ruby Navarrijo, to make sure that we're in conversation with the commanders about the technology that we're using to keep our neighborhood safe. And then again, in terms of video cameras at residences, we would encourage you to look into getting video cameras and at your doorstep. But also, if you're a small business owner, if you have not already invested in cameras, to please let us know and come talk to us, because maybe we can help find some funding so that you can get some cameras around your building, because that would help solve crimes.
Okay, I'm going to move on to another question from the chat. This one is from Ivy. What can we do to help the students and the victims' families?
Thanks, Ivy. I think one thing is a show of strength right now, and a show of love. They need to know that they matter, and we are thinking of them. And one way to do that is to show up here, to be in community, but also in person at the Magnolia and Thorndale tonight at 7:00 at the vigil. And we're really so thankful for the faith community, ECRA in Edgewater, for organizing a vigil in a very timely manner, because we really need it right now. There's so much hurt. It's unspeakable. This should not be happening here or anywhere else in any other community or neighborhood across the city. Our kids should be safe, and they should be able to walk to and from school without fearing for their life. Also in the meantime, we are going to be continuing to look to the principal for guidance about how we can help the students and the families, and make sure that they know that we're here for them. Okay, so thank you.
Okay, another from the Zoom with the raised hands. Nicole, go ahead.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. I don't want to take up too much time, but one, I wanted to follow up on the question about the robberies and break-ins that happened on Clark Street. I understand that investigations are ongoing, but are there any plans in place for prevention? Obviously DeFlower just got broken into for a second time. So wondering if there's going to be anything done while the police are investigating, looking for the criminals that have committed these crimes. The second question that I have is related to the ongoing gun violence and the shooting. It sounds like there are various city officials that are trying to put together a plan. I'd like to know what the deadline is for putting this plan together and rolling it out. I just hear a lot of, we're talking to so-and-so, we're talking to the commanders, we all need to put, after school programs in place and address these under-resourced areas, because that's going to solve the problem. But I'm looking for a more immediate solution to this problem. I have a middle schooler that goes to Pierce, and all these kids were talking about it last night. They were texting today at school. They were texting. There were kids that were afraid to go out for recess because they didn't want to get gunned down. I mean, it's crazy. And So this is like, this should be, I know there are lots of things going on in the city, but in our community, in my opinion, this needs to be like top priority. And I want to just see some concrete solutions, some action. I watched the mayor's press conference. Leni, I know you were standing there right next to him, and he was saying that we all need to join together. That this solution is going to take everybody's input. And so we're here tonight. I'm here, and I'd like to know what the specific to-dos are. Like, what are my tasks? What do I need to do? Where's my list? I feel like that would be a little bit more helpful to have, instead of just all the leaders saying, well, everyone needs to pitch in. Like, I need something concrete. We need a plan. And then you also had mentioned that there's going to be, and I'm sorry, maybe I missed the date. There's going to be a community event that's upcoming that it will involve all the leaders, business community and such. And I'm wondering if you can remind me of the date of that again. I know that was a lot. Sorry to take up so much time, but that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. I hear your frustration. I'm frustrated too. I lived in this community for 24 years. I've never had something like this happen. My kids went to Pierce as well, 3 of them. And, you know, we walked to school on Clark Street, or on Glenwood, you know, from where we were. And everybody should be able to, all the kids should be able to walk to school without fearing for their life. I know that today was a really hard day at Senn and probably at Pierce too, because I know, you know, siblings might have gone to Senn and or Pierce, and kids are looking for leadership. And I'm a mom too, so I feel you. I do. What are we doing? I mean, we really do have to work at every level of government. So I will tell you that my office, my director of development, the state senator, the Chamber of Commerce from Edgewater, a Loyola representative, were walking together on Broadway, like 15 minutes after the shooting, and they were doing a business walk. Because that's what we do, you know, when things happen, we got to get out in the street and we need to talk to people. So we're talking to the small businesses who were, you know, burglarized, and also others who might be able to take advantage of, you know, resources at the state level. And so that's what we do. We work together. And unfortunately, that group was very, very close to the shooting. And so it really has hit us, like the moment has hit us actually and personally. But we have to work together. So I know you're frustrated. We're definitely going to have a community event. We're going to work with district counselors at the 20th district and possibly the 24th district as well. I'm going to give you a date, but also know that it's not confirmed. Audrey's looking at me like it's not confirmed. So I'm going to give you a date. Please hold it on your calendar, and also make sure that you keep subscribing to our newsletter, because we are coordinating. It's not just us. It's with, you know, the CPD, with the chambers, with the mayor's office, to see if we can get representation and get you the plan, Nicole, because I'm all about the plan as well. So, but we all have to be in on it. I'm certainly not going to tell you what the checklist is today, except to say that I'm really grateful that you're here, and also that I'm grateful that people are going to show up to this vigil tonight, because right now our hearts and minds, from myself, and I hope you all too, are the victims of the shooting, and also the children, like your own children. Like, we want to make sure that they're safe, and we also want to show them that we are working together. We're working together. We're working on the plan together. So tonight, 7 o'clock, and also February 13th at 6 o'clock. And more details to come on that community event. If you have ideas on how we can use our time best together, please let us know. We would love your feedback.
Okay. And so then I'm going to I'll ask another question from the chat in just a moment, but I will also include links to subscribe to the newsletter and to follow our socials so that you can get updates on that meeting as we have them. But yes, February 13th is the tentative date. And then I also, just because I was putting together the newsletter recently, I have a little bit more information to add about prevention from like the storefront robberies. And that is that one thing that they're doing for prevention is really working with business owners to remind them to empty their cash registers at the end of the night, leave their cash registers open, and put signage in the window indicating that there is no cash, in the store. And that is sort of the, the prevention that starts with the business owners, when we do obviously want to have prevention that starts at the higher level as well. But that's kind of the immediate part of the prevention plan, is making sure that business owners are aware that that's the kind of thing that does really prevent crime. And I just wanted to mention that because I was typing it a few minutes ago when I was putting together the newsletter. Okay, so then I will ask a question from the chat. Yes, we're on to the chat. How can we help the people at the Broadway Armory?
Thanks so much. Actually, Audrey has a really great resource link to share with you in the chat. We share this on our website and in our newsletter as well. It's still cold and we're still getting new arrivals into the city. Not at the pace that we have in the past months, but buses continue to arrive. They're not arriving again as steadily as before, but they continue to arrive. And as predicted, many that are coming here, especially the children, are not coming fully clothed or prepared for this cold. So we're still looking for warm clothes, coats, and jackets. There's also a need for Spanish-speaking volunteers. Right now, the Resurrection Project is working on helping to get people work authorization papers. And it's quite a process. So we would love your help if you are Spanish speaking or if you know people who are Spanish speaking. And that's generally across the city, because if we can help everybody across the city, then we are helping those that are at the Broadway Armory. I know that the Broadway Armory residents are also in touch with mutual aid organizations and also walking to Care for Real. So if you don't know Care for Real is just north of Foster on Sheridan, and they've been here since the 70s, taking care of those who are in the most need. And so please look to Care for Real to donate or to donate your volunteer your time. Centro Romero is also another organization that is really spending a lot of time helping the new arrivals, especially getting their city key ID card, because with an ID, it's like a pathway towards more resources. So getting a city key card also takes a process, and so they are also looking for Spanish-speaking volunteers to help with that. And generally, if you don't know Centro Romero, please go check them out because they've been serving the needs of immigrants for a very long time as well, since the 70s. And this is really what it is. We need to expand the services that we offer for what we really need to point to, which is our lack of affordable housing. Not just for the new arrivals, but for everyone here in the city of Chicago. That's why we're going to push for good policies, such as Bring Chicago Home. So I think that the number one thing, if you can take anything out of this discussion tonight about how to help right now, register to vote and also plug in with a group or our office about ways to get the word out about voting on March 19th and also bringing awareness to the referendum that's on the ballot around for Bring Chicago Home, so we can pass that and make sure that we have a funding stream for our housing crisis. And if you don't know what Bring Chicago Home is, we'll definitely get you up to speed, plug you in with other organizations that are doing great work. And also for us, we'll be promoting more about the election day on March 19th and everyone voting yes for Bring Chicago Home so that we can address the homelessness crisis here in Chicago.
Okay, I think that is all the time we have. It's just after 6 now, and we want to give people time to get to the vigil if you are planning on going to the vigil. But I won't end the meeting just yet, so that if you didn't get a chance to ask your question, you have time to put it in the Q&A in Zoom so that we can hold on to it and answer it at a later date. And I'll also be saving the chat so that we have record of that as well. But thank you very much for coming, and I'll let Leni officially close it out. But just so you know, I'll be leaving the meeting going for a little bit so that you can ask your questions in the Q&A feature.
Thank you. I just want to say how grateful I am to each and every one of you for engaging with our ward office and for plugging in wherever you plug in the community, whether it's your local school council, which please, consider running as a community member for, if you have a child in your school, to run as a parent representative, or if you have a child that is of age and can run, please have them run for local school council, because representation really matters. And also, now is the time to come together to heal, to center those that were directly impacted by the shooting. We don't want our kids being afraid to go to school. We want to show them that this is our community that we take care of. We take care of each other. We're going to do it in ways that is creative and also bringing more people in. We want more people in our community because our community is amazing with our incredible public schools and our principals and our parents who choose public schools. I thank you all for that. I thank you for the groups that are on the ground, really talking about the issues that matter to all of us. And I hope to see you there tonight, and be well. Thank you, everybody.